Alright kids, I know I said I was going to talk about Rage for my next video, but as fate would have it, the script for that one was taking a little longer than I wanted it to, partially because there's so much to discuss on that one, and partially because talking about Rage is... And as I was wrestling with all of that, today's game, a new indie retro shooter called Anomalous, released into early access with episode 1 out of 3 planned episodes, consisting of 10 levels to plow through. And since I'm committed to covering indie shooters as well as classic shooters on this channel, I rolled up my sleeves, sat down, and waded deep into the dystopia that awaited me. Anomalous is set in the city? Country? Of Kosolov, which looks like Cyberpunk 2077 and Half-Life 2 had a baby together. An unseen voice transmits nationalistic broadcasts from huge speakers suspended over city streets. Propaganda about faith in the country and purging unclean thoughts is plastered on the walls. The whole thing has a super Eastern European futuristic fascism vibe, and it fucking slaps. And what's more is that the game knows when to switch up the environments, so that just when you're starting to get tired of the city environments, suddenly we're outdoors in the forest, or at the docks, a rain-soaked prison. And the variety of level design really works well to the game's benefit. But the fascism isn't really the big problem that our unnamed refinery worker has to deal with. No, the problem we're facing is all kinds of strange mutated creatures, both organic and robotic, which appear to have invaded the nation on a massive scale. While we make our attempt to escape from all of this alive, the soldiers of the glorious city-state are none too pleased that a common citizen is wandering through the incursion zone and take aim to silence us as well as deal with the alien invasion. So we've got zombies, aliens, faceless soldiers all gunning down on top of us. What's a lone refinery worker of a glorious nation to do in such instances? Go all Hunger Games and mow down every fucker in sight. Anomalous' story is super minimalistic, leaning hard on a less is more vibe, where we get plenty of questions, but few, if any, answers. Honestly, the game is quite content with just keeping it mysterious, teasing the player with whispers of hints of possible answers in the form of environmental storytelling, such as graffiti that says, "Politics made the dead rise?" And it's only in the final level where our refinery worker discovers a crisp, clean government lab that really wows with some excellent level design and looks like it ought to hold some of the answers of what's going on. But instead, we're led straight into a very intriguing cliffhanger that's got me jonesing for more than I already was in for. Which is saying something because this game is broken as fuck. But hold on, let's not get into that part yet. Let's start with the aesthetics and the graphics. The cyberpunk dystopia vibe is in full effect. Heavy shadows, bright neons here and there, with crunchy, retro, chunky pixel textures that look great from afar and absolutely brutally ugly up close, and I love it. I'm not sure what kind of engine this has been made on, but there's a wonderful blend of 2D sprite effects and fully 3D modeling that walks a very fine line between the recently popular PS1 graphic style and a more modern, polished look. There were times playing this that I wasn't even 100% sure which side of the line I would put this game on, because it actually kind of looks like how I remember a lot of early 3D shooters felt like. With the heavy use of color against darker environments, Anomalous really quickly draws comparison to Proteus. But one of the things here that Anomalous does differently are the lighting effects, which are bright and bloomy, and to be honest, didn't quite work for me. I really like this aesthetic. The chunky PS1 retro graphic trend is one that I've been watching closely and craving more of, but holy shit, does this game need to turn down the bloom a little and make things a bit less shiny. I wasn't sure what setting in the graphics could change that. I gave it a cursory glance, and I tried turning down the post-processing effects, but nothing really seemed to help. In most cases, it isn't too bad, but when you're in dark areas and you need to use your flashlight, or when there's high-powered spotlights pointing across the map, the lighting gets really oversaturated, and while it's a decision, I had a hard time rolling with it. I did try turning down all of the settings to low in order to discover how to tackle the lighting issue, but the lighting remains the same no matter what you adjust, which, you know, that's fine, because I don't like to adjust graphics too much when I'm reviewing a game. Usually what I do is I look for bloom, I look for motion blur, I turn those off, and I leave everything else because when it comes to graphical effects such as these, the developers put them in there for a reason, and I want to experience their vision and not dilute it by choosing my own preferred settings. Let me experience the art the way the art was meant to be experienced, and I shall, as such, judge based on that. I do like some of the hard shadows that get cast because of the light sources, and I do like these effects on principle, but I'm so not a fan of light saturation turned up so high that it looks like I'm staring into the sun half the time. especially when, say, you get a quad damage and then all of your shots leave neon purple tracers so bright that you can't see through them and you can barely even look at them. Sure, I get it. Cyberpunk themed aesthetics usually trade on harsh neons against more neutral colors to make them stand out more. But if this isn't actually bloom effect, it's close enough that it's bothersome. God, I fucking hated using the flashlight in this game. It was so bright. Moving on from that bit, the overall graphic presentation is fantastic. At times it does feel a little generic with some of the assets, but for the most part the production values in the design are really strong. Not as strong, however, are the enemy designs, which, despite being fine at what they are, they do little to stand out as being unique. The actual alien creature work isn't bad, they're just kind of bland, a little generic. Standard issue dark colored monsters with glowy bits to help them stand out in darker areas and backgrounds, but the soldiers are mercilessly boring. White camo, black riot gear, sometimes carrying around a glowing billy club, they're as standard gets. Anomalous feels content so far with keeping creature and soldier designs on the basic side of things, while focusing on creative environments and distinct aesthetics, which, you know what, that's fine. I respect that. I don't know about you kids, but I don't need to have super hyper detailed and individualistic enemies in every single FPS game. Developers can get away with generic creature design if the designs manage to be distinct enough from one another that I can tell what is what and how to approach each enemy, which Anomalous does, and so I'm fine with it. This game, as I'm interpreting it, is more about atmosphere and game feel, but game feel isn't going to feel good without solid controls and good weapon handling. So thankfully, Anomalous has both pretty well in hand. I didn't feel the need to adjust mouse settings while playing, a huge boon, and the run speed was just fast enough that I felt like I was moving well, but not so fast that I had no control over my movement. Although I really wish these indie shooters would go back to having a brisk walk speed and then the option to hold shift to run, rather than just being on auto run with no option to switch it up. I want to fucking hold shift to run when I want to move fast, goddammit. Once again, following standards instead of reinventing the wheel, the arsenal in Anomalous is mostly sticking to basics. Pistol, shotgun, machine gun, grenade launcher, rocket launcher, sniper rifle, pulse rifle. The two standouts are the melee weapon, which is a fucking fire axe. Holy shit, yes, fucking thank you. And a crossbow that looks badass and absolutely fucks. Speaking of looking badass, the rocket launcher? Holy Jesus, this looks like it's about to go bar hopping until it finds some poor asshole who's too drunk to know better, and then it's gonna have one too many shots and get riled up and start a fight just because it's in the mood tonight. And it is effective too. Holy shit, this rocket launcher kicks ass. The shotguns are a bit of a letdown though. Both the standard and the double barrel don't feel underpowered so much as they feel just a little too slow to wield and just a little too light on the damage numbers to really feel like they make a difference in a fight. You can see the tracers the buckshot leaves when you shoot them, which makes sense, I guess, because all of the ranged weapons in this game are projectile based, so no hit scanning here, but the super shotgun just, I don't know, it reloads just a little too slowly to be effective for crowd control. I will say this though, when it works, it fucking works, and the sound effect is appropriately meaty and okay, maybe I do like it a little bit more than I had let on at first, damn. Combat overall is very satisfying and absolutely bonkers at times. Anomalous does not hold back on the difficulty department. You'll get ambushed by tens of enemies at a time in some places. Soldiers will do their best to flank you. Aliens keep following you even after you've left a room. You're in for a very hard time if you do not think fast while holding down the trigger button. Whittling down soldiers with the machine gun, then hot swapping to the super shotgun was a great tactic I found. Just like in other modern indie shooters, pressing Q will let you quickly swap to the weapon you were just using so you can set yourself up with a 1-2 combo easily, and holding down the mouse wheel will freeze time and let you cycle through your weapons to nab the right one for the job on the fly. The music is fine. It oscillates between ominous deep synth work and fast-paced heavy guitar stuff, which just sounds decent enough to do the trick. Earlier in the game, I felt mildly unimpressed with the soundtrack, you know, because it's just kind of like what most other indie shooters are pumping out with their soundtracks. But later on, the deeper you get into the game, the more it starts to really lean into the ominous synth stuff, settling into a bit of sci-fi horror action vibe, which honestly, if Anomalous had done that from the beginning, it would have really fucking nailed it. A lot of the visual choices here, from the lighting to the presentation of the monsters, and especially the level titled Meat, really draw from the pool of sci-fi horror, and the impression of a cyberpunk eldritch shooter here grabbed me by the collar and didn't let go. And while, yeah, it would have been nice if the soundtrack had stuck that chord a little sooner in the game, it eventually all comes down to crafting a dreadful atmosphere while charging guns blazing through shit that you really don't want to be charging through. Outside of some occasionally bad pathfinding, oh my god, I really could not find my way around a couple of these maps. Anomalous just sticks the landing of being all killer and no filler, with generic designs and generic ideas, executing them with style and panache enough to be truly entertaining. And if that were it, we'd be pretty much done talking here. I'd be giving Anomalous's first episode a 7, maybe a 7.5. But unfortunately, the state that this game is in right now in early access is confoundingly broken, and it really hinders the experience. Now on this channel, I'm no stranger to early access bugs and glitches, and I know that things change from inception to final product, and that's all well and good, and I believe in the journey just as much as I do the ending. But Anomalous, to its detriment, is super unpolished at the moment, and this makes all of its other more generic design aspects feel unfortunately lazy by association. Now, kids, don't get me wrong. I don't believe that the design work in this game is, in any sense, lazy, but the jankiness of the current game state and the amount of bugs and glitches could definitely lead some people who give this a shot to jump to that conclusion, and that would be really unfortunate. During my playthrough of episode 1, probably the most common bug that I ran into was enemies that were technically dead, but they still stood upright and acted as though they were alive. In these instances, it's hard to tell what's dead and what isn't, unless you're paying close attention to whether or not your bullets are hitting their target or passing through them. This bug seems to only mostly affect the zombies, however, which is great, because if it had been an across-the-board glitch, this game would have been really aggravating to get through. But even still, zombies are very prevalent from start to finish in this game, and if you're shooting at something in the midst of heavy combat and it's just standing there, walking animation playing, you're not going to be able to tell easily if the bug is in effect or if it's still coming at you. I had like 1 or 2 times where I got up close to a zombie I thought was dead, only for it to turn and claw at me because turns out it was still alive. Another big one is that the music will sometimes just stop playing if you die and reload your game. I ran through big chunks of Anomalous in absolute silence, which you'd think would only heighten the atmosphere, but knowing that it was a bug made all the rest of the jankiness pop out even worse. Object collision is super janky. Soldier models, when they collapse after you kill them, will stretch out of proportion like they suddenly just got a massive boner after death. In one case, the game told me I picked up something called No Name Item Undefined, even though I didn't actually pick up anything. One time I died while I was trying to use the weapon cycle, and the game got stuck, so I had to alt-tab out of it and close the game manually. And the straw that nearly broke the camel's back for me was the elevator on the final level refused to activate and take me upstairs to the last area of the game. I was so convinced that I had done something wrong. I scoured the whole level all over again. I hunted up and down for a button that would activate the platform so I could return and just head upstairs. I thought for sure that maybe I had to destroy a power source or something, anything. I don't know. So I tried reloading a save to see if maybe I just hadn't triggered the elevator to work, which then led to the rest of the level breaking as well. At which point I backed all the way out. I started the entire level from the beginning, and when I got back to the elevator, it finally worked. There's a smattering of little things throughout as well that all kind of stack up to a point where it is incredibly difficult at times to overlook the super early access nature of this game. But, and I do say but, overall, I don't think that was enough to detract from the enjoyment of the game. However, all things considered, given the state that Anomalous is in currently, I'm gonna have to deliver a final score of 6.5 out of 10, although I'm looking forward to patches kicking this up to at least a solid 7. Anomalous was developed by Byron Dunwoody, a solo South African developer who only has one other game under his belt at this point. Considering that this is the work of only one human, it's pretty impressive shit. There's a clear reference for 90s first-person shooters on display. The game has a very clearly defined aesthetic and vibe, and when it's working, it is firing on all cylinders. But we have a very early access game here on our hands, kids. Now, I have no doubt that Dunwoody is already at work on fixing a bunch of these bugs. In fact, he's been on Twitter thanking people for their feedback and is preparing to dive back into the list of bugs that he's been delivered. By the time this video gets uploaded, the game will have been out for a week and a half, and who knows? Maybe he'll have gotten a couple fixes in by then. But as of launch day, this is a game that needs a lot of work to be more playable than it promises to be. Something that I fully believe you kids should invest in if this game looks like something that'll capture your attention. There's enough here that's been done really well to warrant giving this a shot as an investment, to pay a creator not for what's here, but what is possible from this down the pipeline. Anomalous is only $5 on Steam, which is a steal for any early access game. But the first episode here took me just under 3 hours, maybe 2.5, and if you multiply that by 3, you're already getting a lot of bang for your $5. In the retro shooter community, not every first or even second game that a developer puts out is going to be a banger. We all have to remember that people have to build up to making a Dusk, or a Medieval, or a Viscera Fest, or a Hrot. These games take work and time and effort, and learning from mistakes. Sometimes we have to ask ourselves if we're only supporting indie games because they're as good as other high-tier shooters, or because the game shows so much promise that we want to see this artist grow and create more. For me, I'm all about supporting Anomalous because Dunwoody clearly has some design skills and creative talent on display here. Anomalous, so far, isn't a game changer, but it's a game full of passion and talent that can and will find an audience, and also hopefully inspire Dunwoody to keep developing projects such as this. And sometimes, even when a game that ought to be a 7 is closer to a 6 because it's unpolished, if it's at the right price, it's worth it to pay creatives. As for me, I've already paid my money and I've made my video, and I'm looking forward to making a second video when episode 2 of Anomalous drops, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how Dunwoody polishes things up. Alright, now that I'm off my soapbox, I'm gonna go back to writing about... Yeah, that's coming. Remember to stay hydrated while you're gaming out there, kids. I'll see you next time.